This is the most missed wrestler in recent history, and I happen to be the whole effing show, Rob Van Dam. You're listening to me right now on InYourHeadOnline.com, because you know where the action's at.
All right, and we're back here at In Your Head Wrestling Radio. I am the internet icon, the pride of the pilgrims, the nature boy, Jackie Jones, and I'm joined with my right-hand man.
1-inch biceps, the power goat. Bah! How about that, Jack? How about that?
Kind of a weak bah.
Well, I was trying to sound like a menacing,
like a professional goat.
Yeah, or menacing, kind of like an overlord or something.
I think you failed.
Ah, shit.
But on the line with us from Kayfabe Commnentaries, I believe he's breaking his own record for appearances here on the show. We're joined by Sean Oliver.
What is this, number 3? 4?
Oh, I think it's like 5 or 6.
Uh-huh.
You got to be kidding me. I'm hanging up.
Just said enough. But everyone always enjoys when you're on, and honestly, over on the Facebook page, people always send me messages when you're having Sean back on.
Well, that's good. I mean, I do enjoy talking to you guys.
Yeah.
You could call me crazy.
And I actually did want to bring up, just so you don't think, I know you enjoy being here, and we like having you on here, but someone had mentioned that not only do they love Kayfabe Commnentaries, and I think they're the best shoot DVDs out there, but they also heard of Kayfabe Commnentaries from a contest they won on In Your Head, and they won.
That was a Piper fan.
Piper fan, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Was it a contest for the Piper timeline disc?
It was probably before that, because he's been around.
Okay.
He says it was a Shane Douglas timeline.
Oh, well, there you go. The ECW timeline. Shane Douglas covers 1994, of course, in his edition of Timeline, History of ECW. We're shooting one tomorrow with Raven, covering 96.
Ooh, that'll be good.
Yeah.
Which will actually, after that, we just have our 93 that we have to shoot, and that's going to round out that series, that whole spinoff. The ECW brand of Timeline will be wrapped up with Raven's 96 and then our guest for 93.
Mm-hmm. That's weird to think, though, such like an influential company and such a memorable product, really has a finite time there, only a few years.
Yeah, history kind of blurs that for a lot of things. Think about the Beatles. 63 in the United States, right? And they were wrapped up by what? 70, 71? 8 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so the length doesn't necessarily determine greatness. Thankfully, for all the women in my life since I was a young man, length we should not be judged by. Rather,
totally
how prolific we were while we were there.
There you go. Very well.
Mm-hmm.
94. That was the year I graduated. The Shane Douglas timeline. But you just did had the RVD timeline. Was that 2000? I can't remember. I'm bad with years. Maybe it was 99.
It was a 99. 99. RVD is 99.
But either way, I thought that was... I actually think that's RVD's best interview, and I like a lot of RVD interviews. And that was really one of the best timelines. I thought that was...
Yeah, well, we're hearing that it was people's favorite of the ECW, the Timeline ECW series. I would agree. I think when we wrapped, I said to the guys on the set, that's the one for this series thus far. I mean, I enjoyed them all, but there was something special about RVD's. First of all, he had just been released or left WWE. He wouldn't talk to anybody, and it was something we'd kind of been lobbying for a few months through one of his booking agents, and we were the one thing that he agreed to do. So we were pretty happy about that. So we knew he was going to bring it. We knew if he agreed to do this and nothing else, we knew that he had a lot to say about 99. And then his candor is the other thing that helped. You need somebody who's going to speak their mind and not worry about repercussion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he definitely fits the bill.
Yeah, and I thought he gave a lot of insight on ECW itself and Paul Heyman, where it was both, like, you could tell it was, like, the best time for him, but at the same time he knows, you know, he got ripped off and everything, and you did a great job, you know, like, why is it you're saying this? You know that the guy ripped you off, but at the same time you have a smile on your face.
Everybody in this series, the one thing that is consistent, we may just for giggles pull every Paul Heyman story from the series and string them together for an internet exclusive, just to hear everybody say the same thing about Paulie. He's a carnival sideshow shyster. Say that fast 3 times. And everybody knew it. They all knew they were being worked by him, and they all talk about it with a fondness of getting worked by the boss. I mean, at the time, maybe it was a more tenuous situation, but everyone thinks of him like this mischievous teddy bear. Oh, that Paulie telling me I'm going to get my check next week. Oh, Paulie telling us we're going to be on CBS right after the Howard Stern show in a couple of weeks. Oh, that Paulie. But at the time, you know, these guys are trying to pay mortgages and take care of the family and stuff, and ECW, in that short span, we talk about that, you know, that lightning flash of time that they existed. They went from making nothing to some of the guys, like I know Sandman, I think, mentioned what his money was, and I think RVD may have mentioned on his edition. They had like guarantees of like $3,000 a week in the mid-'90s. Then they go from that to not having checks clear. So, you know, it was a stressful situation, but still, people look at Paulie like the lovable bad guy.
Mm-hmm. Just real quick here, TT Bar here in the chat room, he says he bought the RVD timeline because of Jack's review. Is definitely as good as Jack said it was. I'm glad he got it. I'm glad he enjoyed it.
I agree with him. It's probably my brother that wrote that.
If you guys want to call tonight, it's 508-644-8503. And we actually have a caller on the line who's been trying to call in. Dustin, do you have a question for Sean?
Yes, I do. Actually, I had 2 questions for Sean. I've been watching a lot of the clips on YouTube, and that's how I've gotten to know about your series. And my 2 questions is, first of all, is what was your favorite Ho is a Ho part of the DVDs that you've done with some of the wrestlers? And my second question is there somebody that is no longer with us that you wish you have gotten done any of the series, whether it was the timeline or the guest booker that you wanted to do but you never gotten to do with it?
Let me see, Dustin. This isn't Dustin Runnels, is it? This isn't Gold Dust, is it?
No. I'm from Texas.
All right. Okay, all right, because we have some unfinished business if it was. To your first, what was the first question again? The whole bag? The whole bag?
Yeah, the whole bag.
Who was my favorite guest for the whole bag?
Yeah.
Any of the participants that were honest about it. I think. Oh God, let me see. Any of the ones I think New Jack had a pretty solid showing. I think a few people hit the bag for New Jack's edition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I thought that one was funny.
Yeah, some of the guys try to, they're going to be gentlemen about it, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with being a gentleman, but that show is tailor-made for some of the lightning rods of the business, so it's always fun when we get someone on like that, like New Jack, who's not afraid to show some bitches in the whole bag. Let me see. I think Maria Kanellis might have stuck a few girls in the whole bag, if I'm not mistaken. I think X-Pac, Sean Waltman, a few people hit the whole bag. Sean Waltman, I think in his edition we did it wasn't only whole bag. We made him do a word association game. So when we said the woman, I think that was his edition where he had to say the first word that comes to mind. So he might say sweetheart or whatever. And that's the legendary episode when we got to Lillian Garcia and he said, Big Bush.
Yeah, I remember seeing that clip and I was laughing on that one myself.
So I'm going to say that that's probably my favorite edition because it's gone on to be, according to him, every time she sees him, she's got a comment about that, and it's kind of gone on to become a joke with them. So I guess that one's gone on to live in infamy. And as to your second question, any of the wrestlers who passed away that we didn't get a shot at, well, not speaking selfishly, I think one of the most tragic losses to us was Savage, not just to this company, but Randy was so reclusive, and I talked to Poffel about this on his edition of Breaking Kayfabe, which is also available at kayfabecommentaries.com or shootinterviews.com, and I said the biggest, other than the loss of a life, the big tragedy there was he never shared his wisdom, his philosophy of the business, his story from a first-person standpoint. He never let anybody inside that, and he was brilliant. And such a gifted performer, had it all, one of those guys that was not one of these, jacked up, juiced up monsters. He was fit, he looked like a wrestler, he moved like a wrestler, he had the believability, he was great on the stick. He had it all for that time period, and we really never got to get any of that wisdom. We lost him way too soon. So I'd say Savage probably would be my answer.
Yeah, because I agree with you 100% about Randy on that. So, but yeah, all right, you answered my question. So, appreciate
Justin, where are you calling from? What part of the country?
Texas.
Texas. They say everything's bigger down there.
Yeah,
I'm a Cowboy fan. Where does that put me in your heart, Dustin? I'm a Cowboy fan.
I used to be a Cowboys fan, but not anymore, even though I met Troy Aikman back years ago when he was still playing. I'm more of a Broncos fan now, so.
Oh, for Christ's sake, get off the phone.
Thanks to free weed. All right. Thanks, Dustin.
All right. Thank you, Jackie.
Let's see here. 412 area code. Who are you and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Mike from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. How are you?
Hey, Mike, what's cooking out there? You hanging out with Shane Douglas tonight?
No, definitely not. Hey, I had a question for you, Sean. I buy a lot of your shoots and everything. I really like your product. I think you're the best out there.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Are you related to me?
No. Quick question, though. I was always wondering how the payoffs are calculated for the guys when they, whoever you're going to bring on. Do they get royalties? Like, how is that calculated? I'm not looking for a dollar figure. Just, is it a number that you come up off the top of your head?
That's a good question. It depends. Sometimes it's somebody we've worked with before, so we kind of know the ballpark. No, it's a buyout deal, so there's no royalties on it. In this secondary market like this, it would be, calculating that would be a matter of trust. But no, we give them a fair upfront payoff, and it all comes down to the size of the name, to be quite honest with you. And generally, the agent or whoever's contacting us on their behalf would ask us for the budget and what the figure is, and I give them the figure. Sometimes there's a little back and forth. Mm-hmm. And then it's like any other negotiation. You have to know the market. You have to know when you're overpaying. You can't be led by your heart. It's a business decision, no different than bidding on anything that's going to yield a return. And you have to be realistic about that return. And if you got to walk, you got to walk. Some of the talent are unrealistic about the market and their place in the market and their place in history. And I understand that. I mean, everyone probably thinks they're worth top dollar, but you just got to respectfully walk away and move on. So it helps to know the market. Every once in a while, some little company will pop up and start throwing a ton of money around, thinking that it's easy to survive in this business. And, they'll nail some talent with greatly oversized paydays, which really kind of throws the market into a tailspin because it knocks off the fair market value for that talent for all the other producers like us and the other guys that have been there for 10 years. And some schmuck and a half buys a camera and, thinks The phrase I always resort to is, I said, you could buy the guitar, but you're not going to play like Eddie. So, they go out and buy the guitar and throw a lot of money around, and, when the talent ends up coming towards us, they say, well, we'll offer like this. I just got XYZ from this guy last year. Mm-hmm. And that kind of makes it difficult.
Is what you pay commensurate to what they... I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I was going to say, is what you pay commensurate to what they would get like for an indie match, or is it more or less?
I don't know. It's probably more, just because of the longevity of this product. The promoter at an indie match is confined really to just being able to pack that house that night and take the risk of a snowstorm or weather or traffic or whatever where he can't fill his house. But this has a life, an infinite life. We can sell this DVD forever. So I think we probably pay more, and rightfully so.
Yeah. What's the lowest you ever paid anybody? I need to know.
There have been situations where,
Conan,
like for a roast, if somebody wanted to be involved and we hadn't booked them for a spot, and they said, please, I want to be part of this. Anything you can do, and then we'll throw just something to be able to compensate them. I would never ask somebody to work for free. I couldn't have that kind of weight on me. But we've paid people $5,000. We've paid folks $400. So it really depends on their place in the marketplace.
Can we guess at the 400 one?
Sure.
Who do you think?
China.
Who?
I think
China. China.
I don't.
No, God, not China. You kidding me? China was reborn at that time. She had just signed with Vivid Video. She was going to take copious cocks in her ass for the next couple of years there with that Vivid Video contract. We weren't getting her cheap.
I still can't believe she didn't admit to using steroids. What's the big deal?
I don't know. It's a badge of honor to be able to say you're
very honest.
Are you working on China, Jack?
Nah, I don't care about it. But anyways, thanks for calling in, Mike.
Thank you so much.
I did want to ask about the hoe bag. A previous caller had asked about that. Do you ever go over any of the segments beforehand with anybody to make sure it's okay, or do you prefer to just have them in and get there?
No, I prefer to sit there and when I introduce a segment, have them stare at me, shell shocked. What I will do, the new format of You Shoot, we shoot all the we shoot the questions and then we shoot the stand-up segments. We call them the green screens separate. So we'll go through the entire show seated at the computer, and then we'll break for the setup for the green screen segment. So I'll explain to the town if they're not familiar with the show. There are some people who come on and they don't know. I explain that the nature of some of the questions because it's solicited by fans, that they just kind of have to be light and roll with it. It's a lighthearted show. Keep it light, keep it funny, keep it rolling, keep it soft. And then I'll say we do have a few segments that we're going to break to over here. I'm going to ask you who the hoes in the business are, who the dicks in the business are. And we'll go through the thing, the script word for word, but I'll give them a pitch on what's going to be going down.
Yeah. Does anybody? Because I've seen almost all your DVDs, and some of the people, they just basically don't want to answer those. If beforehand they just would tell you like, I don't want to do that segment, would you just not do it? Or?
Yeah, no. It would be foolish to put up something where it looks like we're crowbarring them into participating. So yeah, I mean, if ever they wanted to opt out of something, like we actually started to shoot a segment that I shut down because it wasn't going anywhere with ICP. Did you ever see their show on was it Fuse? Or
I haven't. No, I didn't even know they had a show.
No, I wasn't even aware of it.
ICP. It's called ICP Theater, and it's like a a Mystery Science Theater where the two of them sit there and they watch music videos and they just crack on the music videos and the talent in the music videos. So we did an ICP theater segment with China's porno. And it wasn't going anywhere, so we said, let's save some time and move on. So yeah, you gotta know. You can't. Our stuff is edited. That's the other thing too. I know a lot of other companies throw cell phones ringing right into the fucking thing, and eating pizza and stuff. Well, we edit this. I mean, there's entertainment value that's got to be considered. We edit for pacing. To kind of keep things moving, and we get better at that as time goes on, having a sense of how to cut these shows so that, You Shoot's a fast show. If it drags, it doesn't work. So that's why we dropped in the change of setting when we do the whole bag in the big bag. We generally now will go to that as just for a visual breakup for the viewer's eye. You don't want it to be too stagnant, and we always put a visual element into our shows. The timeline. I could just read all that stuff that pops up on the screen, but we do those breaks so that just in the viewer's mind and as the viewer's watching it, it's segmented. It's a little easier to digest like that in little bursts of information instead of the one static shot the entire time. So we put a little thought into this stuff, Jack. Who knew?
I've actually thought part of that might have been for the timeline one, because it would make it harder to pirate as an audio MP3. Because you wouldn't be able to see what they were talking about if you were just listening.
That kind of just became an ancillary thing. The decision to go visual was there with the first guest booker when we were putting all the information on the screen and kind of keeping track of where the bookers were going. So we always wanted a strong visual sense to the shows. It was just a benefit.
Yeah.
That I guess it's a bit of an insurance against piracy, if that even exists these days. And
just a shout out to Darren Beck, who I believe does some music for some of you who were released.
He did. He remade the original You Shoot theme. He was a musician who contacted me somehow. I don't remember, but I listened to his stuff, and we got to talking about the sensibility. I did want to remake. It was when we were revamping the show. We changed the logo. We had to get away from. It started as a parody of YouTube, but it kind of became its own entity. So we needed to get away from it looking like a YouTube logo. It had to be its own thing, and I wanted to cut up the show, insert segments and make it more fast-paced. So we were changing it up, and I talked to him about the music, and we went back and forth a few times, and finally got to the point where I thought it was good for the show. So yeah, he remade the original Kevin MacLeod theme song.
Yeah, he was our artist of the month on a horror show. He played the music for the month, and he's working on a song like that. He's a cool guy. Let's see here, we got Lewis on the line. Where are you calling from?
Dallas, Texas.
A lot of people.
All right, a Cowboy fan. Finally, a fellow Cowboy fan to ask me a question.
And nice to meet you, son. Really love your videos.
Oh, well, I love you for loving them, Lewis.
Okay. My question is, you always cater to your guests with beer, wine, and liquor, and sometimes I think I see food. I was wondering who was your most demanding and least demanding guest, and also what was the craziest demand a guest has asked to be in your video?
The most demanding had some weird things. I'm trying to think of the weirdest request. We do tell them that, food or beverage, we will provide and have on the set for the day. Honky Tonk Man wanted a very specific vodka, and it was very hard to find. It was Seagram's Extra Smooth Vodka. And when we were just starting out, we thought it was very important that we find this for him to prove that we are the production company that caters to the stars the best. So we had to go to the ends of the earth to find Seagram's Extra Smooth Vodka. I don't think they make it anymore. Let's see. Vince Russo needs his Yoo-hoo. So there has to be Yoo-hoo on hand. Larry Zbyszko didn't request anything, I think, other than Pepsi, but he did call me about a week before the show and tell me his teeth were falling out and that he needed me to help cover a dentist bill so that he could be on the show with teeth. That was a pleasure. Let's see.
Well, teeth are falling out.
Well, listen, these workers will go to no end to get that upfront money. I mean, think of the brilliance behind that. The brilliance.
Yeah,
I won't have teeth for your fucking show. I mean, that's brilliant.
Yeah, you can't have like you used to with Larry Zbyszko there, and he's got no teeth. This wouldn't be right.
Exactly. What am I going to do? I'm hosed. But he showed up, and the dentist did a hell of a job. The caps or whatever he had there were perfect. Louis, I forget your second question. I want to answer it, though. What was it?
Oh, well, the least demanding.
Oh, the least demanding. Many of them just show up and they're fine. They just want to roll and do the thing. Many of them are very accommodating in that way.
Oh, okay. One last question. F. Mary Kill, Jim Cornette, Kevin Nash, and Conan.
Well, kill Conan. Make sure you isolate that clip, Jack. Get me fucking assassinated.
That's gonna be a whole podcast.
F. Cornette and marry Nash because he's got those $117,000 dividend checks coming out that he announced on our show.
Ooh.
Okay, thank you, Sean. I really appreciate it.
All right, Louis, thank you.
Thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
Which China porn was it that you had for the ICP segment?
You know, it only lasted about a minute and a half, but she was blowing guys in the ring. I'll tell you that.
Oh, okay. Yes, I think we might have watched some of that in the chat room one time with some of the rest.
I wasn't around for that. I'm glad I wasn't.
Yeah, it's just kind of sad. I thought it'd be a lot more fun, but I know the Mean Gene Okerlund in that particular porn. He's just going.
Yeah, they did parody some of the wrestlers. I don't know if they used what's his name as the 1, 2, 3 kid, but they should have. Tom Byron.
Mm-hmm.
He's Dead Ringer.
Yeah.
Maybe that'd be the next thing. Shoot interviews with former porn stars. That would be good. We'll call it You Shoot on My Back. We could call it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah.
Go dig up with Jamie Gillis and Ron Jeremy and Joey Silvera and Tom Byron and Peter North. All the greats of the past all have a place on You Shoot on Her Back.
Yeah. Now, that would be a series I'm pretty sure Intro would be all about.
I don't know, Jack. I don't know what you're talking about.
But I did want to bring up Back to the Territories, which I'm a huge fan of, and I hope to see more of these.
Yeah. We, there was a time, Jack, when before cable, the country was segmented into various territories, as they called them, and wrestlers would work different cities for different promoters and kind of bounce around the country and work in different places, and we hear about it a lot, and no one's ever really covered it in depth. There's a lot of places that wouldn't be able to sustain a timeline series. You know, we get requests all the time, oh, you guys can do a timeline AWA next, and I don't know if we could do a year by year, dedicating an entire year to something that happened in the AWA in 1976 and keep it interesting. So we said, let's do this where we dedicate an entire episode to a territory. And Jim Cornette was my first and only choice to host the series. He's, of course, he's entertaining on camera, but he's a wrestling historian. He's got a large collection of memorabilia that we can shoot and include in the show. And so that launched that series launched in November, I think, with the first edition with Hacksaw Duggan, where they covered.
I always think the most underrated guys in any of those is Duggan. I know everyone talks about Honky Tonk Man and Cornette and guys, but I always think Duggan's great on those. He's very funny, and he seems like a good guy. Always has great stories.
Yeah, he did a great job. I mean, he was one of the guys in Mid-South that was, had that huge time there where right before the Vince thing exploded, and Hacksaw was on top with DiBiase and JYD and everything, and so he was a great guy to give insight into the Bill Watts. See, something I talked about with Cornette when we were starting this series is I do want this to be an accurate historical retelling, and that's what Jim's there for. He does an amazing amount of research, and he's like an encyclopedia. But if you have all of the promoters on talking about their territory, then it becomes kind of their version of it. Will they reveal the ugly parts, warts and all? So you could have had Watts on to do Mid-South, but then that would have been the Bill Watts take on things. We want to take a little bit of a step outside to have somebody familiar with the territory, that worked in the territory, to sit with Jim and go over the truth behind the territory. The one thing about the Timeline series that insulates us from all this bullshit that WWE does with their network, emulating our programming and, outright ripping much of it off, a la Countdown, and a lot of these series that are very shoot-based now, from a historical standpoint, they're never going to be able to tell the truth. Because you're not going to tell your own truth to everybody. Nobody's that egoless in this business to tell the truth. And there's a lot of stuff that they'd like to go away, quite frankly, from history. So they're not going to delve into it. So the Timeline series, because it's told by the talent that worked there, in the first person, it allows us to be truthful, which really removes any direct competition from the big guys, because that series is able to be truthful and reveal anything that might be a blemish, and we can talk about it, we can get into it, and go through it. Well, if we had all the promoters on for the Territory series, it would remove that element. So with a talent that worked on top and Jim, that would be the way to do the Territories. Now, there are going to be times where we break from that, for obvious reasons. If there's a promoter that's not around anymore, but we can get somebody that was in the office that can tell a first-person account of working closely in that territory with the promoter and with the talent, then I don't mind having office people on. J.J. Dillon, by the way, who's going to do the next one, that comes out on February 17th, where we do Mid-Atlantic and the Crockett territory. He was unique because he worked as talent, but he was in the office too. So he tells that story from a dual track. He was working on camera with Jim for much of his time there, but he was also, Dusty's assistant, and he was in the office working with the Crockett's. So that's a really interesting addition. And also we have the incredible gift of Jim Cornette's footage that he owns, the old Mid-Atlantic footage that they threw out that he pulled out of the dumpster.
Yeah, for the last week. It's a crazy story.
Yeah, so we'll be cutting some of that stuff in there. That's going to be a great one.
Now, I also mentioned when we had Cornette on last week was, everyone loves Cornette rants and everything, but it's also nice to see him talk about something that he really loves, because he has a lot. He's not just a guy who can rant about stuff. He can talk about something that he actually enjoys and has a lot of knowledge about, and it's good to see, a different side of Jim.
Blowjobs?
Well, he does talk about that too. He talked about trannies last week.
Oh, man.
It was just quite the interview.
His doctor, he was checking his prostate with both his hands on his shoulders.
Yeah, from what I understand, I don't think the promoter was too happy with the interview because he said it didn't do the best job of promoting the Fan Fest. I thought it did.
That's just some of the hijinks you'll see if you show up to the Fan Fest.
Yeah, no one wants to. Sean knows if he just came on here and just talked nonstop about to buy his DVDs, it wouldn't be very interesting. But if you talk about other stories and also put in to buy the DVDs, more people are going to listen and be more apt to purchase the DVDs. It can't just be all. No one wants to listen.
Enough of this wrestling shit, Jack. Were you a fan of the Italian horror films, the Fulci and the Dario Argento's.
That's just come up recently because actually that's something I'm not too familiar with, and that I'm gonna try to start watching more of. I don't know if you're familiar with Lawrence R. Harvey, who played Martin in Human Centipede 2, but he's going to do a segment on Without Your Head where he's going to be the professor, and he's going to give us assignments to watch some of the great horror movies from the past from other countries, and then we will be his students, and we'll go and watch them, and then come back and report on them. But I haven't seen many of them.
Let me throw a few titles out, and you tell me, you give me a rating 1 to 10, because you're kind of an expert on this stuff, right? I'm going to pull some from my childhood years, some of the ones that scarred me greatest. All right, House by the Cemetery, go.
House by the Cemetery. See, I'm not really... Mm-hmm. Is that the one with the one-armed Nazi?
Yeah, I don't even remember. It was a house near a cemetery. I'm gonna tell you that.
Is that the one? Is that the one-armed zombie intro?
I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've seen it.
It might have been a foreign film dubbed into English. Now that I'm thinking about it.
It's the one zombie in the basement. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that might be it. It's one of the best Fulci ones in my book. I think that one's pretty high.
Okay, Splatter University.
Splatter University. That one I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, that one I don't know.
Okay, Pieces.
Pieces, yes, I know Pieces. That's the one with the girl that's cut up on the front with the chainsaw.
Yes, as a killer that's making a real life like jigsaw.
And there's a lot of like first person perspectives in that, like where they're running around killing people. Yeah, I remember that one.
Joe Spinell in Maniac.
Oh,
one of the greatest performances ever.
Yes, that's a 10 on mine. Also, the best poster ever. It's very suggestive. He's got a big bulge in his crotch, and he's holding the severed head. He's like the most sleazy man ever on film.
But he was in. But how many other splatter heroes were in The Godfather? For Christ's sake, let's give him his due.
I don't know if you've seen the remake of Maniac, but I actually was very surprised. I enjoyed the remake.
Oh Christ! Let's see. Madman.
Oh, Madman Mars. That's a really good slasher film. I'll give that one an 8.
Basket Case.
Love Basket Case. Huge fan of Kevin Van Hentenryck, who actually carves stone now. People don't know this, and I go every year, Annabelle and I, to the Catskills and carve stone with the star of Basket Case. Basket Case I love. I'm going to give it a 10.
There's a very good, I don't know if it's a Criterion or whatever, some edition of a special edition of that where they like go back to all the locations that they shot in New York City and like cover the go to the actual spots where they shot, I guess, and they try to get into the places. It's pretty cool. There was a hot chick in that, wasn't there? Was that the one with the kind of the blonde?
Yeah.
She was a damsel, I guess, in that film. She was like a punk singer.
Yeah, those old movies, though, they just go and shoot stuff right in the city without getting permission, and that adds a lot to the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You run right into the street with a handheld, like a Bolex, wind-up Bolex, where you get, about 30 seconds of video time on a hand crank. I digress. The film school geek in me creeping out.
Excellent. That's excellent, though. A Basket Case.
You gotta mention.
Didn't Belial the creature that looked like a ham, basically? Mm-hmm. Didn't he pork the girl in the end? Like, wasn't that the thing, that the shot of her naked and he's laying like a Dak ham on her stomach?
Yeah, it's great. I actually carved. I have it sitting in my flower bed. I carved Belial on a stone and brought it home.
God help you, Jack. Do you have children?
No. Not mine.
All right.
But they also on I also have a hat which is very reminiscent of Buff Bagwell's hat, but mine's hand painted with all horror characters that are some of my favorites, and Belial is on that hat.
That's excellent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Most people. Andrew's a big fan of the hat. I don't think you've ever seen the hat in person, have you?
Who, me?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Now, what are you? What eras of wrestling are you personally a fan of?
Well, I grew up. I first saw wrestling in the late 70s, and watched with a voracious appetite through the early, mid-'80s. I guess all of the '80s I watched. That was a great time for us here because in the Northeast, whereas prior we got the McMahon product, McMahon Senior product only. And then around 83, 82, when everybody started getting cable, all of a sudden the whole wrestling world opened up to us because we were now able to see territories that we'd only be able to read about in the wrestling magazines. And we'd have on PBS, we'd have, the Atlanta show, and then later on the Georgia Championship Wrestling first, and then, when it became World Championship Wrestling. We got the Mid-Atlantic show on a UHF channel when they used to shoot in South Carolina, Chapel Hill, those tapings. On MSG Network, we got Fritz's territory. We got World Class. On ESPN, we were getting AWA. And so it was amazing. All of a sudden, almost any day of the week, you had wrestling on. So that was, I guess, the era that really honed me as a wrestling fan, was all through the 80s. And I kind of fell out of favor with it when it started getting a little silly, a little goofy in the 90s there, when we had, the Goon and this and that. And it ceased to be what it was for me. And, in that age, me going into college and, having to suspend disbelief and watch Duke the Dumpster Drosy, it no longer had the appeal that it did. But ECW, and then shortly after that, the Attitude Era, kind of reeled me back in. Mm-hmm. I guess just the commitment to the realism and a little bit of the contest was back.
Is it, for you personally, is it easier, is it more fun to do the U-shoots or any of the videos with a product that you're not only familiar with, but you also enjoyed?
Yeah, and it's probably noticeable. I don't know, I do my best, but if you watch like the Piper 84 or the any of those eras, any of those the 80s shows, even the Rene Goulet Inside the Office, where we just talk about his tenure working in the office. There's some shows I lose myself completely, and I just become an audience member, and it's very much conversation, and I lose sight of the timing of the show and script and all that stuff, and I can just become a fan again, having a conversation, and that happens in those shows that time periods that I'm most a fan of.
I like
it's a lot of times.
True. I personally like that. I mentioned that last time we had you on the Piper one. You could just see in your face, and even in the still pictures, but when you're watching, it's like that you love, even I think it kind of came through that just being there with Piper was special to you. And I like it when that comes through.
Me too. Because there's nothing like talking for 3 fucking hours straight, sitting at the same angle with your head turned to the same side as it's stiffening up and burning when you're talking about shit that you don't care about, can't remember, and don't even care to have the answer to the question.
I was in Seattle recently, a few months ago, and Piper was there. It was a Mad Monster party, and he did his stand-up, and he talked about that. Basically, he said that he's like, someone offered me $1,000 or $5,000 for 10 minutes. And I said, sure. And then 3 hours later, and I talked about Patterson blowing me, and all hell broke loose with the WWE. And I thought it was rather funny the way he put it.
Yeah, that hot rod boy. Well, I've heard the $500 thing before. I wish it was $500. I've heard the 10-minute thing before. He knew how long he was going to be there for. We made arrangements and had his beverages there and whatever he needed there for the long talk. And, he was very good about saying, whatever you want to ask, wherever you want to go. And he was great about it there. I think in light of the heat he got from WWE, he had to Revise a little history? Is that weird for a wrestler to do, huh? How about that?
Yeah.
Revise a little history.
Never heard of that.
Never heard of that, right? They don't do that in Connecticut. So Hot Rod's being Hot Rod, and that's cool because he's the fucking legend. He's the one guy that would get a pass from me for anything. His contribution to the business certainly outweighs any negative thing I'd have to say about it. I don't have anything negative to say about him.
Yeah.
Doing a little damage control, I understand, and he never put us down or said anything negative about us, other than I guess we kept him there 3 hours longer than he wanted to be, but that's just not true.
Yeah.
I mean, I have the signed contract with 3 hours on it if anybody wants to see it. Maybe Hot Rod wants to see it. I don't know.
Yeah, I got an interview with him there, which I was very proud of, because that was my favorite wrestler growing up. He's the only wrestler I had a poster of on my wall, and I have the stills up on my Facebook, and people had said, "Oh, it looks like you have love in your eyes" and stuff. But it's special for me to interview Piper. It was great.
He's a guy that they have thrown the term legend around so much. I mean, but there are a handful of the guys in the business that the reason the business is here today largely hinges on things they did, and he's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Hogan was an incredible force beyond wrestling. He was an enigma. He was the business in the 80s, but you never, ever, ever, ever have a hot baby face without a hot heel.
Mm-hmm.
And Piper was the fuel in Hogan's rocket.
Do you think he's still the best performance by a wrestler in a movie? He's one I always pick.
Oh, for They Live?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think because it was the right vehicle for him, wise-ass, intense character in an action film, that's, you're a pretty safe bet if you're going to put Roddy in that.
I don't know. Kurt Angle and Zombies vs. Wrestlers.
Oh, yeah. I missed that.
I was at Bazaar AC, is a horror convention in Atlantic City, and they were showing that Pro Wrestler for Zombies, and I was watching. It was me, Annabelle, and a fan of the show was there, and we were sitting in the back, and we were just laughing out loud because it was so bad. It was funny. And no one else in the audience were laughing, and no one laughed or anything, and I just couldn't imagine that they would be watching it and actually thinking, this is a good film. But apparently, I guess they did. I don't know. But
there was a time where these guys had to be good actors.
Uh-huh.
Okay, because it was the business was dependent on some level of believability. Even if it was a half-hearted kind of, I know this has worked, but, I'm getting sucked into this thing. So they did have to believe the shit they were saying when they looked in the camera, and they had to sell tickets to house shows at one time based on those little stand-up promos in between the matches, and they had to be compelling in, a minute and a half's time. So I would venture to say that a lot of the guys back then would have been very good actors, at certain roles. I don't know how they would have played, with a mute autistic AIDS patient. They probably might have had a hard time, but for something where they had to be a big personality, like in They Live, a lot of the guys probably could have pulled that off.
Mm-hmm. Yes, man, you got some questions from the Facebook page.
I just got one of my own to start off with. What do you think about TNA going to Destination America?
They're going to be around forever. It'll be Roaches and Dixie will remain after the apocalypse. I never thought they were going anywhere. Everybody, last year was like, almost at the end of the road. I don't know if I was on your show or somebody's show. And I said, listen, guys, this should have been over a long time ago, and it's not. So it's never going to be over. There's an endless infusion of cash, and they're just going to continue to do this. What they need to do is scale back and stop thinking they're going to be a viable competitor to Vince. They've got to be the hottest indie federation in the country. Once they can put their egos aside and accept themselves as that and pay salaries according to that and not tour the country and do TV, find a studio somewhere, do your TV, bounce out, do small houses, do some house shows here and there. Once they're content to do that and they can work in that business model, they'll go on forever.
Any, would you do timeline TNA?
No, there's not enough there.
Back to the TNA.
No. I know, that's a good question. What would I do then? Would I do territory? Would I do back to the territories with TNA? No, I don't think I would. Mm-hmm. So where's their place? Are they a timeline or are they a territory? That's something to think about.
Because I mean, I think there would be an audience for something for TNA. Maybe not like a whole series of DVDs, but I think you could. There'd be something. Cheeks on season 1 of TNA.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Yeah, just because of the story, the start of it, with Jeff and Jerry, and there's a lot of interesting stuff there. I just don't know if it could sustain a series. That's something we'd have to talk about in a meeting for a long time. The guys here.
That sounds like one that your head's burning because you can't turn your head in a certain way and you just don't care what they're saying.
Oh yeah. You got it right. 2008. The timeline 2008 TNA.
I'm so happy to be here right now.
January 1st.
The barbed wire Christmas tree.
Yeah.
That was an excellent episode.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Waldo wants to know any chance of getting a box set of the ECW timeline once 93 is done.
Yeah, we talked about doing an all-inclusive thing, but I hate companies that fuck the fans, and unless we can offer something really different with that box set, like a lot of added value, somebody who's got 3 of the editions already, you don't want to make them have to buy the whole shebang for $100 to get everything. So if we can find proper value to add, put some cool stuff in there that that even if you do have a couple of the editions, it'd be worth it to get a bonus disc or something. Then yeah, we will. But we got to find the right product. We go through that a lot actually at meetings. A lot comes up, and at first would seem like a good idea, and then honestly, if it's not something that would benefit the consumer to have, we nix it. It's important to us to make sure that people that buy our stuff feel like they're getting value, even just the face value of the DVD, the $20. I want you to feel, if you're holding $20 DVD, I want you to feel that there was a lot of writing that went into it, that there was a lot of production, that we made it look right, we made it sound right, feel right, and that it was entertaining. Even just that $20 or $15.99 if you watch us on demand, which is also available on your Roku now via the World Wrestling Network, I want you to feel that you got your money's worth.
Has that helped? Have you seen a difference since you added the Roku? Do people tell you that's how they enjoy watching it?
Yeah, a lot of great feedback on Roku.
That's how I watch your RVD.
Yeah, anyone that's got it loves it. I think WWN sent us something about our November numbers. We're up 46% on demand from November of 2013, and they were attributing a lot of that to the Roku. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's working. We're WWN is developing an Apple TV platform and an Android platform also. So you'll be able to get us across all platforms within the year.
Very cool. Cool. Yeah, I got the Roku I actually got it for the WWE Network, and the Roku's awesome though. That's how I watch Netflix and everything.
Yeah, I recommend it. It opens up a world of programming. You're no longer limited to just what the networks and the cable stations want you to watch. There's a lot of great little channels on Roku, little oddball things for people with real niche interests. Mm-hmm. They have whole channels dedicated to stuff, so it's really great. It's the programming revolution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I watch my own videos on the Roku. So yeah.
There you go.
Have you? Do you feel any of the recent WWE firings those guys when you have them on, do you feel like their answers are very political?
Yeah, we're learning. We're always learning. We're always paying attention to trends that we're experiencing, and we're learning what works for our programming and what doesn't. I think that we had a few good examples this year of good ways to use recent released talent and ways that we could have done better with. Some of the good ways that I'll spotlight, I think that Kurt Hawkins' Brian Myers edition of Timeline was great. He was able to cover a recent year in WWE, and didn't have to fire any shots really. You know, he was able to be entertaining and talk about his time there, and it was a great story of a kid whose dream came true. You know, so that was a great use of a recently released WWE talent. You'll see in the Alberto El Patron U-Shoot, which comes out in March, great way to use someone like Alberto. Had fun. It was U-Shoot. It was a fun setting. Light show, funny show. Does the tequila taste test, which is definitely going to be a rewatchable moment for everybody. It's called El Patron Bebe Patron. El Patron drinks Patron.
Uh-huh.
So that's another good use of talent. I had hoped for bigger and better things from Brodus Clay's shoot.
Tires.
I'm trying to think of who else we worked with. And Brodus was a good guy. It's just it just felt to be the wrong form for him. So, you know, that's something we have to learn. We have to learn how to better pair talent. We've always prided ourselves on being able to pair the right talent with the right program. So when it doesn't happen, it's obvious, and we have to learn from it. And
you do think also the current wrestlers are different than previous generations where...
Yes.
You know,
I think that's huge part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Huge part of it. These guys would pile in a car after a show and drive. I'm talking about the guys from yesteryear, you know, and battle to the next territory. And there was a brotherhood forged with them. They fought with each other. They had that brotherhood, but they fought, and part of it was, you know, talking shit and telling tales. And now these guys are much more independent. A lot of them see this as an entree to something else. You know, they're going to be musicians or actors or game show hosts or whatever the fuck. And so they're very entertainment minded. So they're very guarded with their words. And you know, at a different time, these guys were one step from the circus. You know, so it was a much more wild existence. They lived much more differently. I mean, what are the fucking road stories from now going to be? You know, I remember driving to Cincinnati. I was playing Tetris on my iPhone, and you know, I spilled my coffee on my nuts. It was crazy.
Yeah.
You know, as compared to, you know, if you were the one riding shotgun with Harley and you had to hand him the beers. You know, I mean, it was a very different existence, much more interesting.
Yeah.
To listen to. So I think we have to choose our talent more wisely.
Mm-hmm. In the future,
sometimes.
There'll be a lot more stories about Twitter. Mm-hmm. You know, I blocked this Mark on Twitter,
Yeah.
Well, I was just blocked recently by Lance Storm, by the way, on Twitter.
You were just, okay, well, I don't want to know what happened. You want to go into that, or is this something you saving for your therapist?
I heard him on F4W, and he was telling a story about how he always hated Hulk Hogan because he said Hulk Hogan was full of himself. And at the end of the interview, he said, like, I had this contest where if you go and buy this book from some friend of mine, you send me your name, whatever, and he'd like pick a random person, and the prize was he would follow them on Twitter. And so I tweeted, you had to keep it in 140 character reserve, but basically it was like Lance Storm says Hulk Hogan full of himself. His prize for contest is he'll follow you on Twitter, which he blocked for saying.
Why would he do that, man?
I thought it was funny that you would say someone has spoiled themselves, and then for a prize for a contest was he would follow you on Twitter. Like that was this amazing prize that you could win. You can follow by Lance Stewart.
Well, listen, his edition of Back to the Territories was fine. I detected no ego.
Mm-hmm. I just found it humorous. But yeah. No, he's
humble.
Which territory is Lane Storm doing?
Calvary.
That should be good.
Stampede. A lot of people scratch their heads, and then I guess again everyone expected Brett or whatever, but we want to kind of go outside the box a little bit with this, and it was it was his home base. He grew up watching it, and then he was at the Hart School there, and then he worked there. So, and he's got a great chemistry with Jim. So it was something we decided to go with, and it came out really great.
Yeah. Cool. What do you think about CM Punk? Is he going to get killed in UFC? What do you think?
Oh, my God. CM Punk. Did you listen to that fucking podcast on his friend's show?
Yeah. The first, I enjoyed the first one. I don't know if you listened to both of them.
I listened to the first one, and I popped when he said, "Don't ask me about Batista's dick."
Yeah. That was.
But I listened to the two of them talking about people on the street coming up and calling him Phil. Mm-hmm. This occupied a big part of their conversation. They were aghast. They were aghast at this. His friend, who hosts the show, said, "Yeah, it's ridiculous, man. That's like someone walking up to Robert De Niro on the street and calling him Bobby." Like, what the fuck? I said, no. Someone coming up on the street and calling someone Robert De Niro is like calling someone, "Hey, Robert," like, "Hey, Phil." Wanting to be addressed as CM Punk is like walking up to Robert De Niro and saying, "Hi, Travis Bickle."
Exactly. Right.
So it's the exact fucking opposite of the world that these kids live in today. They're in the business. He wants to be addressed only as Punk, and when asked by his friend that hosts the podcast, what if someone comes up and calls you, can they come up and call you CM? And he says, "Not if you want me to respond." So I don't even think Obama, the President of the United States, has sanctions on how he's to be addressed. But CM Punk does. So clearly a very important figure. I think he's a talent. It's just it's all this blowhard stuff that's come afterwards. That's like, oh my God, what's he doing? But I guess you gotta create a bit of a mystique about yourself to separate yourself from the pack. I guess I don't know. That doesn't answer your question about UFC. I could give a fat rat's ass what happens to him in UFC. I don't really watch it, so I don't know. Maybe he'll be a great UFC fighter. I don't even know what it takes. It's a lot of guys laying on top of each other on the floor for a long time. Yeah, I went to a live one back in I don't know, in the 2000s somewhere, and I was not sitting close, and I looked at for the entire night at two guys lay on each other from a mile and a half away. I didn't get it. And they're in the grapple. They're in the guard. I know. It's very, very. It's not spectator friendly enough for me.
I thought that the part that I disagreed with him the most was when he talks about, which I always hate anyway, when they start talking about guys, the part timers, and it's like Undertaker and The Rock and Brock Lesnar. And he's got a problem, putting these guys over. They're part-timers. And it's like, come on. The Undertaker streak, that was like the biggest thing going for WrestleMania. And if anyone deserved to be, a part-timer, I think it would be The Undertaker.
I didn't hear what he said. CM Punk had a problem putting over The Undertaker and who?
The Rock.
Brock Lesnar?
Brock Lesnar and The Rock, yes.
Right.
Because they were all part-timers.
Because the importance to the company is now going to be based on the amount of time that somebody works throughout the year. Based on that, Steve Lombardi should be champion of the world.
Right.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That guy's always at the office working hard, huh? He's had a long tenure with the company. Tony Gurria should have been on top forever. So that's the standard by which they're judged, how often they work. Not the size of the draw, not crossover, not getting movie fans who became fans of The Rock after WWE, tuning in and buying the pay-per-view and adding a ton of revenue to a public company that needs to deliver revenue to drive a share price and drive investor value. We're going to base it on how many times a year they work. Okay, interesting theory. I'll digest it.
Idra, by the way, is a big fan of the time we had CM Punk's friend on the show, Cole Cabana. You really enjoyed that interview. Well,
hey, come on now. It wasn't just me.
No.
How did it go?
Intro, you gotta tell a story, Intro. You're good at this one.
Oh, well, we just had him on, and we asked him a question about working with somebody, and he just would not answer a goddamn thing, and he was like, what do you mean working somebody? You mean that, McDonald's? It's like, oh, God, come on, dude.
Oh, he was probably he's so inside. He was probably objecting to someone who's not in the business using the phrase work.
Yeah,
you think that's
much
where it was going?
Yeah.
Oh, right, protecting the business. All right, well, that's good. That's kind of old school, I guess. I would not go on a podcast then if I was going to protect the business.
It went on for quite a long time, too.
Yeah, and he claims he's the first wrestler to do a podcast, which is just not true.
No.
I know Barry Horowitz was doing one long before he was, and I know Les Thatcher long before he was.
CM Punk's friends who were discussing, he was booked for a U-shoot that he agreed to and then backed out of. We had announced it. We began soliciting questions for, and then he backed out, and it's the only show I've ever had to pull.
Yeah, what's the matter, Colt Cabana? You don't want this for Hundy?
That's all right.
Yeah.
Bigger fish to fry. Who's up next?
Well, maybe you could bring him on and just do the whole thing about asking about CM Punk. I'm sure he would enjoy that.
No, that's probably what he feared. That's probably why he didn't want to come on. I mean, he didn't say as much, but the reasons he gave were kind of weak.
What else you got from the message board intro or the Facebook?
Well, do you pick up Destination America? I know I don't get it. It's just I got to upgrade my package and whatnot. And I don't want to do that. I think my package is big enough.
I'm not even sure. You know what? I don't know if I even get it.
Have you watched Lucha Underground? Because honestly, when people would describe it to me, it really sounded like something I would hate. But I was really surprised. It's actually my favorite wrestling show on TV right now.
Where can I find this?
I don't have the channel. I have the channel, but it's in Spanish. El Rey. I've actually been watching them on YouTube.
No, I know. I've seen the videos on YouTube, but where's the first run?
El Rey. El Rey.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't have it. I have it, but mine's all in Spanish, which is odd because I thought the whole point of El Rey was it was a Spanish channel, but it was in English. But mine's in all Spanish.
The Blue Guy, he wants to know, would there be any interest in doing a timeline on Glow or XPW?
Oh, God, no. Holy shit, no. You know what? I'll say this, though. There's a very good documentary about Glow.
Yes.
I don't know what it's called, but it centers around a reunion of all the girls. And I thought it was very, very well done and a very interesting look at a very interesting little offshoot of wrestling's popularity in the 80s. The Glow story is very, very interesting. So, no, I don't have much to contribute to the Glow conversation. That documentary did about as much as that anyone could probably handle about it. And XPW, no.
Yeah, it's just called Glow, the story of the gorgeous ladies of wrestling. It is an excellent documentary, though. It's a bit sad and it's interesting. I found it a lot more interesting than Glow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. In very much the way that I like Heart of Darkness more than Apocalypse Now.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I thought the documentary was fascinating, and the film was a bit much. It was a little bloated. But when you watch the documentary, you learn why the film appeared bloated, because the production was bloated. I digress, though. Occasionally you get the documentary that's more interesting than the subject matter itself.
Mm-hmm. TT Bar here in the chat room wants to know, have you had any talks with Eric Bischoff about doing anything?
Oh, I can't. I can't say anything right now.
That's a yes.
I hate that answer. I hate guys that go on and do that. I can say this: Eric Bischoff will be a part of Kayfabe Commentaries.
Very good.
Excellent. Slicky Baby from our message board. He wants to know, what is your interpretation of the Roddy Piper Pat Patterson story?
Piper, boy, you know, the more telling moment about his story happened later. After the kind of uncomfortable moment that everybody played and everybody like puts on YouTube and stuff, and I guess we had it as part of the trailer where, you know, he said he did some things and he was kind of vague. Later on in the interview, Piper jokingly leans over and pats me on the leg when he says something. And then says, "Hey, kid, you're mighty cute. What are you doing?" Later on. And I say, "Not working the Los Angeles territory in 1972," later on. And he laughs and goes, "God," he says something to the effect of, please don't quote me, he says, "Oh, my God, I know. I even bought knee pads. How did I know he was going to be boss someday?" So anything I was unclear about for the first part, when he just kind of hemmed and hawed and said, something happened with Pat and I was uncomfortable, it got uncomfortable. Anything I was unclear about, he made much more clear later on with the joke.
Were you surprised to see him on Legends House, just like interacting with Pat Patterson?
Okay, now, we had this in the can, no pun intended, while Legends House was being aired. Okay? And I was watching this and noting to myself, can you think, other than the last episode where they all sit around the table and talk to each other, when they're just in the house being shot, can you think of any interactions between Pat and Roddy?
Mm-hmm.
Go back and watch.
Yeah.
I don't think they have any.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, probably pretty consistent with what Roddy said, that there's heat.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember the two of them ever talking to each other. Living in the same house.
Mm-hmm. You're probably right. I can't remember any actual interaction between the two, but I just knew they were, you know, in the same house.
Right. Mm-hmm. Piper slept with his sweats on.
Answer any more questions from the Facebook?
Nah, but didn't you have some Teddy Long questions?
Oh, Teddy Long, yeah. I love the Teddy Long you shoot, and he talked a lot about Viagra.
He talked a lot about Viagra. Yeah.
I thought it was one of the most entertaining you-shoots, but had that ever come up in any other previous, any of the talks with any of the guys about the use of Viagra? Because I can't remember that ever coming up. And he talked a lot.
No, not that I recall. I think that that's the first and only time I recall anything being discussed about it, which is why I think it was so amusing, because it was a new nugget that we hadn't heard before anywhere. And that was right on the heels of, you know, the Brodus release, and I think they maybe one after that. And, you know, so U-Shoot kind of came back strong with Teddy, I thought. Teddy was, again, there's an old school guy who's got a lot of stories to tell,
yeah, and
not afraid to tell them. So he was a great U-Shoot guest. I mean, it's probably, if anyone hasn't seen it, it's a very underrated U-Shoot, I think.
It was great. It was one of my favorites. And I was watching it right before we had, oh, God, intro. Who was because he told the story about,
Sir Mo.
No, it was Outlaw Ron Bass's tag partner.
Oh, Black Bart. Black
Bart, yeah. We had Black Bart on, and I was watching the Teddy Long shoot interview, and he told the story about when he was like a young referee, and it was a match between, it was after Ron Bass and Black Bart split up, And so they were having like a Texas death match, and there was like used the gimmick on him, which was just tape, but he's bleeding everywhere. And Teddy didn't know, but he picked it up and threw it out to the crowd. And
right.
Oh, this will be great to ask Black Bart. So I asked him, and he remembered the story right away, just as Teddy had said it. So it wasn't like, you never know. Sometimes people tell stories, and either they just remember them, or maybe it's something they kind of made up. But it was definitely something that stuck in Black Bart's mind.
Yeah, well, that was clearly one of the very rare instances where something that's become wrestling lore actually happened.
Yes.
Unlike the guys that just showed up with a camera, asked to talk to Roddy for 10 minutes, and he sat there for 3 hours.
When you mentioned earlier about some of the other people who do shoot interviews and they don't edit them, and I know I brought up before about there'll be ones out there that they'll even say right on screen, it'll be like, "Don't worry, I'll edit that out." If you're watching it, but I don't know if you're familiar with this guy, and maybe someone out in the chat room can help me. But there's another guy who does a lot of them. He used to come to our chat room, and I assume he pays people, and he puts them on YouTube. And some of them are like, they're not very long, but some of them will have like 5 minutes of just him talking to the guy before they actually do like any type of shoot. And I don't know if you're familiar, if you've ever seen any of these, but he's done Piper, he's done like a lot of real big name guys, and he had one with Fit Finlay, in the time period where Finlay was gone from WWE, and it's literally.
What does he sound like? The question.
He's like a Puerto Rican, New York guy, New York Puerto Rican.
Yeah, I think it's a company that was called No Kayfabe.
Yes, No Kayfabe, and yes. They're a guilty pleasure of mine, I have to say. Definitely not in a good way.
You know, the thing is, there are varying levels of professionalism out there, and it kind of tends to paint everybody in the shoot interview arena with the same brush. So if there's talent that aren't familiar with us, and the agents don't do a good job of prepping them before, they're liable to pass on a project or come in with a very different impression of us, and it takes me a while to get that guard down in talking to them when they see it's not going to be a no kayfabe in production. I know those guys are fans of ours, so I'm not shitting on them. I'm just saying that I don't think they lay claim to being the best produced products out there. They're being put on the internet for free. It kind of marks us all in the same category. It's just one of those things you got to deal with, I suppose. One of my favorite recent stories. I'll let you guys on the inside a little bit here. Eric Sims, super agent extraordinaire. To the wrestling. If you know Eric a little bit, you'll appreciate this story. In classic Eric Sims fashion, we're at a shoot recently, and I don't remember what my issue was with him, but it was a case of the talent walking in and not really knowing what's about to happen. And he very proudly proclaims, he goes, "Guys, listen, my style is I tell the talent as little as possible about what they're going to be doing." And everyone in the room just kind of looked. And so it was like a real Spinal Tap moment, but it was real. That was. I said, "Well, you can't fucking do that anymore." And many times I've told him, "You got to prep these guys," and he just said, "Listen, you guys have to understand. I tell the talent as little as possible."
He's very proud of that.
There he is, only in the wrestling business.
He has helped set up some guests here. I have no problem with Eric.
No, listen. I'll say this much: people ask me about Eric all the time. In my dealings with him, he's been completely reliable. Anything that we ever booked did happen. He's very fastidious with times and with being precise and making sure everything moves. He's neurotic to that point. So that's a good thing because it helps keep us on schedule and helps us know exactly what's going on. My only complaints with him are, he's a bit of a load to be around, and he would probably tell you that himself. He, quote, tells the talent as little as possible about what's going on. And we're occasionally treated to things like, I don't know, let's say he delivers Sandman to my room with a child, and then says, all right, you guys have a good time. I'm going to run to the mall, and heads out the door and takes his wife to the mall and leaves me Sandman and a 6-year-old.
As little as possible.
Those kind of things are my complaints with Eric. But everyone's there on time, and we're always able to shoot, at least. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it resembles a daycare instead of a set, but we're able to shoot.
Yeah, Spirit Wolf 73 wants to know, what was it like working with Kevin Sullivan?
I love Kevin. Kevin's great. Kevin was the first guest booker, which was the first series we did. So in many ways, he kind of kicked us off. And, we become close to Kevin throughout the process, and he's great. I would work with Kevin again and again. He's one of these great minds. He's always on. He's always got something to say. And if he doesn't have anything to say, he'll make the shit up as he's talking, which makes him a good guest.
Yeah. Waldo here in the chat room wants to know, any chance of a Smoky Mountain project?
We're going to be covering Smoky Mountain in the Back to the Territory series.
Very cool.
Jim will be hosting and interviewing himself, much like the old Roddy Piper bit that was on his Coliseum Video DVD. He'll be a guest and host at the same time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Did you watch Smoky Mountain when it was happening?
No. I would occasionally get see like video, like back in the tape trading days.
Yes,
I'd see some stuff, and I remember. You know what I remember from that? There was a shoot interview. One of the early shoot interviews was
they're all eating pizza.
Yeah, they were outside. It was like a picnic. At the barbecue, and Corny screaming for Sprite the whole thing. Can I get another Sprite here? God damn it! It was early Corny. And if I'm not mistaken, is Bill Apter there for that or no? No.
The ref is there. Who died? He was their main in Smoky.
Hildebrand, right?
Yeah.
That was entertaining, and that's my favorite Smoky Mountain product. Is that video?
I just remember always being pissed because there's one guy who's like sitting right in front of the camera, and you see the back of his head for a long period of the VHS tape. I was like,
one of the fans?
Yeah, I was like, just get out of the way, man. Someone should have asked.
I remember that crew of fans that turned out being very interesting also.
Yeah.
On that tape. Did they win that opportunity to go to the picnic with the wrestlers, or was it like a promotion deal?
I'm not really positive. We should have asked Jim.
I'll ask Corny. He probably fucking charged them. It was probably an advertised event, and set up a little gate, set up a little door.
Yeah, I think Jim eats like several whole pizzas throughout that shoot interview.
I think D'Lo was there. Yeah, that was. I have to get my hands on that again. That was a fun watch.
Mm-hmm. Entry show there. We've got a lot of questions.
Yeah, Jacob Hansen. He wants to know: do you ever cut a question because the answer gets too silly or outrageous to protect kayfabe commentary?
No, the stuff I usually end up cutting is the stuff that they don't have anything to offer. If the answer is flat, or if they don't know the answer to something, or they don't really remember it, I'll cut that.
Darren's on the line. Where are you calling in from, Darren?
From Bay City, Michigan.
All right. What's your question for Sean?
Oh, Sean, how you doing, brother?
How are you?
I'm doing fine. I just wondered, on the ECW timelines, you going to do any more of those?
You're going to do any more ECW timelines?
Yeah, like 96.
We're shooting 96 tomorrow with Raven.
Oh.
And our plan is to finish off the series covering 93 with someone who's agreed to do it. And we haven't locked down a shoot date or anything yet, but 93, the first year of the company, will be the final edition of the series. But Ravens will be out, I think, this fall.
Oh, that'd be cool. I liked the Rob Van Dam one you just did. That was awesome.
We were mentioning that before. I think that's probably my favorite thus far in the series. He was able to talk about everything. He was able to talk about, from the office's perspective. He was able to talk about the locker room from the talent's perspective. He wasn't part of the office, but he had a lot of great insight into Paulie and the way things were working at that time. It was an interesting year, too. He covered 99, and he says it, I think, in the show, that it was like the apex of the company. They got, cable, all this great stuff was happening, and the place was burning down at the same time. I mean, all the seeds of what eventually would crumble were happening right then while they were getting, TNN, and so it was a really, really weird time. You had the highs and the lows, and they couldn't see many of the lows, or they were in denial for many of the lows because they so desperately wanted it to work.
Yeah, that was great.
I know Darren's a huge ECW fan. He's always posting ECW videos.
Yeah, I know.
Well, no, to have an endorsement from a big ECW fan like that, that's what it's all about. That lets us know we're doing something right.
Well, I just want to say thank you and keep up the good work.
Thanks for calling.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
No problem.
I want to bring this one up. Mike Terry on the Facebook, he says, how much better of an interview would he have done with CM Punk than what we got from Colt?
Me?
Yes.
Me personally?
Yeah.
I'd do a better interview than anybody that's interviewed anybody.
Uh-oh, Jack.
Uh-oh.
But you know what? He wouldn't have been as open with me as he would have with his friend.
That's true.
You have to ask CM Punk what kind of interview he would have been.
Mm-hmm.
I would ask better questions.
I've seen an interview where he's just drinking coffee and gets up and basically walks away.
Yeah, I know.
There's a lot of questions, but a lot of them were stuff that we covered. But thanks everyone who sent in questions over on the Facebook page and on the message board. Anything that you would like to tell everybody for recent projects out there that they can get off kayfabecommentaries.com or off wwnllive.com?
Well, of course, the Back to the Territory series is our most recent series. February 17th, we'll have the Mid-Atlantic edition with J.J. Dillon, which will be great fun. The series is hosted by Jim Cornette, so for any wrestling historians wanting to dig through the Territory years, this is the series for you. We have some great U-shoots coming up this year. We've got the submission period is still open for another 2 days for the Lanny Poffo U-shoot. We feel this is of a somewhat timely nature. Some of you guys might have questions. Remember, we broke that whole Poffo Hall of Fame thing on Breaking Kayfabe.
Yes, yeah, because someone had actually asked in the chat room earlier if we ever asked you about the Poffo, and I said, yeah, we had talked about Poffo before you did the Lanny Poffo one, and then it actually came out on the U-shoot, Breaking Kayfabe. And, yeah.
Well, now we're doing the U-shoot, so you guys can ask me anything you want about the upcoming Hall of Fame and how that all went down. Taking submissions up until Monday, and great stuff. More timelines coming this year, more U-shoots, the stuff you love. We're going to have some online exclusives, some package shows from our back catalog, putting together some fun stuff and doing some online package shows, and good stuff coming, Jack.
Very good. I have to get on a U-shoot one of these. I'm going to have to send in a question one of these days. Hopefully get a...
Yeah, send in a video. Put on the hat. Put on the big Buff Bagwell hat.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. I have to get into character. That'd be good times. And DDP had sent me DDP yoga to do and talk about on the show, and my plan is to do a video where I'm doing DDP yoga so I can build up to doing the Poffo. That will be the grand finale.
Oh yeah, well that really is the ultimate goal of all of us.
Exactly.
No, I've never been so proud.
So set it to the Rocky theme. Good. Well, thank you for coming on. It's always a lot of fun to talk to you.
Always a pleasure, guys. Thank you very much.
This is Larry Zbyszko, wrestling's living legend. And if you want to know what's going on in the wrestling business, you check out In Your Head
online.com.